What's up everybody, Raiko here. It's that time of year again, where we all get to frantically freak out and argue online about who's right, who's wrong, which card should be banned, which card should not be banned, but it's my turn. It's our turn. Let's discuss the ban list and what it should be to help fix the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But before we jump right into that, thank you all so much for your continuous support. We're almost at 300 subs, and by the time this is out, we may be at 300 subs already. You all are awesome. Love you all so much. Couldn't be doing this without you all. Let's get into the video. So, starting off first, we have Snake Eyes Ash. And unless you've been living under a rock, you should know that fire is essentially everywhere. It is the year of the dragon, so it's going to be year of the fire. Fire decks are very, very strong, very, very consistent, very, very resilient, and is the reason why we're all playing a million hand traps this format. Snake Eyes Ash is definitely a good card. Is it too soon for it to be banned? Probably, so I'm going to go ahead and say it should be limited. Snake Eyes Ash, limiting this card would make it to where seeing their full combo turn one will be a little less consistent, but more importantly, if they do resolve their combo, their follow-up is going to be a lot worse. Being able to search Snake Eyes Ash with Snake Eyes Ash after summoning it off of Flamberge on your opponent's turn is a little bit too much, and putting a limit on this card would make things a little bit better. Going hand in hand with that, I decided to put Wanted as limited as well. See, Wanted is just better Engage, and we all know Engage was on the list for a while, and although it might be coming off, and we'll discuss that in a bit, Engage is really, really good. Searching anything you need and then drawing a card, that's essentially what Wanted is, but you don't really play bricks with this engine, and Wanted is essentially full combo, and with the new support coming down the pipeline, especially post Legacy of Destruction with the new anti-spell monster that's going to be coming out, hitting Wanted is definitely necessary. Is it too soon to completely ban it outright? Probably. I mean, we have to let people who spent thousands of dollars on this deck be able to play it for a little bit. But for now, I think limiting Snake Eyes Ash and limiting Wanted is the perfect way to hit the deck, as it'll lower the consistency, it'll lower the follow-up, but it won't take away from what the deck's trying to do. For the next card I want to discuss, it's actually going to be Engage. I believe Engage should be unlimited. It is time. This card has been on the list for quite a bit now, and everyone loved Toss format, and Striker, even if Engage came back to 3, it would definitely be a cool splashable engine we'd see in some decks, and yes, people would play the pure deck. However, it wouldn't really be super meta defining or super threatening or super oppressive, really. Yes, having your opponent go engage into engage into engage could happen, and it's very annoying when it does. It outright won't win games anymore, and having that resource, a lot of decks have those resources now anyways, and that follow-up, so it's not really the biggest deal in the world if it were to come back at 3. Given that there's new support coming down the pipeline as well, so unlimiting Engage would definitely be the right call. For the next card, one of the cards I want to discuss for the bans, actually, is Calamity. Now, if you've seen previous tier lists, and you've seen others' tier lists, I'm sure, this card, we all collectively agree should be banned, except for the Centurion players and maybe the Resonator players. But, I don't know, going back to this idea of turn skipping your opponent and having very little interaction for that turn skip is kind of ridiculous. And yes, Calamity can miss timing, but the sheer fact that if it resolves, you essentially win the game, it doesn't promote good back and forth gameplay, doesn't promote healthy gameplay, and overall, this card should be banned. Not much else to say. For the next card that should probably be banned, it's Ghost Meets Girl. Now, although transaction rollback is the real culprit here, as it allows you to copy essentially any trap, I feel like the card itself isn't too problematic. What's problematic is when you lock your opponent out of special summoning for the turn. That's problematic. And yes, Beatrice can turbo it out, so arguably you can say Beatrice should be banned, but hitting the root of the problem, and in this case it's Ghost Meets Girl, I think that's what the smartest case is, and similar to Calamity, anything that's just a turn skip with little interaction should probably be banned. And then for the last ban that I want to go through, it's actually Sanctifier. Now, a lot of people are talking about, oh, ban Gimmick Puppet, oh, hit branded in some way, but a lot of people aren't really talking about Sanctifier. This card is untargetable, And even if Gimmick Puppet is banned, there are other cards that will enable the lock that skips your opponent from summoning at all. So again, going back to the idea with Ghost Meets Girl, you want to hit the root of the problem, and in this case, it's definitely Sanctifier. Branded would still be a great deck, even if Sanctifier would get hit, so it's not like it would kill the deck, but it would just take away that oppressive turn skip that nobody likes playing against. And that's it for the bans. Continuing with the limited, Magispector Kieran. Come on, Konami. You're still not going to unban this yet? Hopefully this is the list, but Magispectors are out, and they're not doing anything. And even with Kieran, they still wouldn't be doing anything. Yes, there would be some pendulum piles that throw Kieran in as just an extra interruption going first, but that's not really a big deal anymore. Pendulums aren't really too difficult to play against, given all the hand traps we have and all the board breakers we have access to as well. It's a very fragile deck, and all in all, I think this would be a great way to push people to pick up the Magispector cards. It's a really, really cool card. I used to enjoy playing with it, and although it can be a little frustrating to out, there are definitely more outs to it now than there were back in the day. Kieran's totally fine to come back at 1 at this point. For the next limited, we have Meowmu. Now, I know some of you are probably getting flashbacks here, but give me a moment. Prankids wouldn't do anything if Meowmu came back to 1. It really wouldn't. Yes, it's another 1-card combo deck, but you don't get the luxury of fitting a bunch of hand traps in there anymore because you have to play the Brave engine, you have to play the Prank Kids engine, and you have to play all the cards that come with Prank Kids. And yes, you'll be able to run some non-engine, but mostly it's nothing like, for example, the Fire decks we see right now where they're able to play upwards of 19 to 22 hand traps and then still be able to do 1-card combos. No, Prank Kids is totally fine. That deck can get Meowmu back, and it still wouldn't really be making a big impact. There are plenty of ways to counter the Prank Kid strategy, and it's a bit too fragile to be super threatening in meta warping. All in all, Meowmu can definitely come back, and it wouldn't really be doing much. Plus, personally, I'd be happy about it. I enjoyed the deck, it was a fun, cool deck, and I miss it. For the next limited card, we've got Heavy Storm. Yes, it was brought back in the OCG, and it's really not doing that much. Some people are citing it, but all in all, we have Duster, Lightning Storm, Evenly. We have all these other board breakers that Heavy Storm is just not too threatening anymore. Now, I'm not saying True Nade should come back because that was the real problem card, but Heavy Storm would be fine. Plus, it'd be really, really cool to see certain decks have certain synergies with Heavy Storm, such as Tearlaments. Being able to set a trap and Heavy Storm your opponent's back row while getting a search, that'd be pretty cool and enable some really interesting gameplay. All in all, Heavy Storm, I think, should come back to 1. It wouldn't really be too much of a problem. For the next card to come back at 1, which is a bit controversial, we have That Grass Looks Greener. Now, hear me out, okay? It's at 1. 60 cards. Your opponent's not going to see it that often. Plus, you have Ash Blossom. People are playing Delta now. People are playing ways to counter this. Plus, Shifter is still legal for some reason. Nonetheless, Grass is really, really cool. It's a fun card, and it makes it to where it enables creative deck building to where running 60 cards is viable and is arguably good. Grass, it's a really fun card. I know it can be sacky at times, but there are a lot of sacky cards in the game anyway. Having this one card that enables variety in deck building, I think would be healthier for the game rather than not. For the next limit, we got quite a few limits if you can't tell. We have Map. Now, Floowandereeze, other than Barrier Statue, never really got hit. Was it needed to get hit? Arguably no. Until now. This deck is absurdly good. And yes, it does lose to itself and it does have its consistency problems, which is the reason why people stray away from it. But if you open like Map, Eaglin, Shifter, or you open some form of combo with non-engine, your deck is a tier 1 deck. And Flu hitting Map would essentially make it to where having the consistency is dropped even more so. So being full comboed by Flu is going to happen less often, and honestly, at the end of the day, Flu doesn't really promote that healthy of gameplay anyways, so I think putting it to 1 is perfectly fine. For the next limit, we got Prosperity. Similar to hitting, yes, like Flu would be hurt by this, but there are a lot of other decks that would be hurt by this too. And I'm sure, as all of you know by now, Prosperity is a really, really good card. And if your deck can play it, you're playing 3 of it. It's so good being able to see whatever you need when you need it. Yes, drawing 2 is powerful, but being able to look at the top 6 cards of your deck and cherry picking one, putting the rest on the bottom in any order, is very, very powerful. Plus, the sheer fact that post games 2 and 3, you can use Prosperity to either search for engine or your non-engine that you sided in games 2 and 3. It's very, very strong. And it's not really bannable, but 3, way too much. Putting it to 1, be perfect. Oh, chef's kiss. For the next card, we would have as a limit, we have summon limit. Yes, summon limit being limited should be a thing. Floodgates, we all know floodgates aren't really fun to play against at this point. Even if you're the one flipping the floodgates, it may feel good and kind of trolly to be able to flip it and be like, haha, I'm winning this game. But deep down, you're not feeling good about it either. Honestly, summon limit should join the other floodgates and be limited at this point. Arguably, the same thing could be said for anti-spell, but as of now, the true problem card is summon limit, as this is definitely the best floodgate in the format. It's kind of like Vanity's Emptiness, to where you're essentially just setting up full combo, and then on your opponent's turn, on top of all the interruption you have and on top of all the resources you have, you're just flipping this to stop your opponent from playing the game and just getting a free win. Summon limit definitely needs to go to 1. And then for the last card for be limited is Tidal. The rest of the rulers are essentially coming off the list, and although Tidal is arguably one of the better ones, it still really wouldn't do that much if it came back. There would be some cool lists, especially with water decks, and maybe that could be something for down the line that we readdress, but as for now, Tidal really wouldn't do anything, and it would be perfectly safe to come back to 1. Now, let's talk about some of the semi-limits. I have 2 cards that I want to talk about that go hand in hand, and that's Shifter and Gamma. Now, if you know me, you know I absolutely hate Shifter. If I can personally pick, Shifter would be banned, but there are a lot of decks to where Shifter is essentially the crutch, that backbone that allows it to compete with other decks. For example, you're either playing Fire and you're spending all that money to pick up a Fire deck, or you're just playing a deck that runs Shifter. And I think having that option for players to fit players' budgets is definitely important and good. Do I think Shifter is a healthy card? No. Do I think it's a fair card? No. That's why I think putting Gamma to 2 is pretty necessary here. If you're going first, you do have options to stop Shifter, such as Called By and Crossout, and that's 4 cards in total. But when you're going second, what are you going to play to stop that Shifter? The one of Gamma? Maybe Herald of Orange Light if you're playing a fairy deck? No. So I think putting Shifter to 2 and bumping Gamma up to 2 would be perfect. That way there's an even chance to where if your opponent sees Shifter, you might also see Gamma. And I think that would make it a little more fair and a little less sacky, and your opponent can't do anything about it. Going to the next card to summon a limit, Miscellaneousaurus. A little controversial for some of you, but hear me out. Dinos wouldn't do anything. Dinos are a really, really cool deck, and it's really fun, and there are definitely a lot of dino lovers out there. It's an awesome, cool deck. You know, pop the baby, special the baby, pop the baby. Who doesn't love that? But Miscellaneousaurus being at 1 makes it to where the deck is just not really that viable, even at a casual play. I think bumping it to 2 would be fine, and it would enable some really, really cool various different decks that can be played, and especially given the fact that Tenpais are going to be coming out and they have their own field spell, which is just better Miscellaneousaurus, I think it's only fair to bring Misk back to 2. And that's it for the semi-limits. Now, for the final cards I want to talk about, these are the 3 that are going to be unlimited that I feel should be unlimited. We have Terop, which isn't really doing anything. Yes, it's a really, really good card, and it's 2 free bodies if you draw the Terop, so you can special Terop, search Takatomborg, special Takatomborg, and at that point you just have 2 link materials or just a free rank 3. But all in all, Terop's not really doing too much, and there are definitely a lot of cards that get you a lot more. I mean, just look at Snake Eyes Ash. That card's like a +7 in and of itself. So Terop being at 3, it would enable people to build some more unique, varied decks, and I think that would be really cool to see, especially given the format right now. For the next card, we have Pankratops. If Fenrir is at 3, Pankratops should be at 3. It's that simple. Pankratops, it's a really good card, and it's inherently a +1. It's a really good tool going second, essentially. It's not oppressive in a sense to where seeing Pankratops means you win the game like how it used to be. So overall, Pankratops is totally fine to come back to 3, and even if it was back at 3, although some decks would play it, a lot of decks wouldn't really side it. So I don't know. I think it would be fine to come back at 3, and I feel a lot of you should agree as well. And for the last unlimit, we have Sacred Tree. This is more for me personally, but I know some of you out there will agree, and if you do agree, you're based. You really are. Sacred Tree, Naturia wouldn't do anything if Sacred Tree came back to 3. The only reason why it was so problematic to begin with is because of all the Ishizu cards. Plus, Runics were really, really good when Tear Laments were good, just so I don't know. Having Sacred Tree back at 3 wouldn't really warp the game. It wouldn't break the game, but it would make it to where the Naturia enjoyers, such as myself and the based players out there, can actually play the deck again, because as of now, 1 tree means you can't really play Naturia at all. The deck's just completely unviable and it's just not good. But having 3 would make it to where you can actually play Naturia again, and it wouldn't be tier 0, it wouldn't be tier 1, it'd probably be tier 2 at best. So it would definitely be safe to bring it off the list. And that's the tier list. I want to know what you all think. Did I miss anything? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there certain cards that shouldn't be on the list or should be banned, such as Shifter? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and until next time, peace.